Hello, welcome to the waiting room. We've got Rash talking about all the states of mind that he's in right before the show.
Rashed.
We've actually, the whole point of waiting room is they come in the middle of our conversation.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not like we're just starting here.
I think
just hang out here all the time.
Unfortunately, we're a little too unhinged usually for broadcast.
Yeah, I'm sure they've stored a bunch in the tape so that when the blooper comes out,
But I
prepare
think
yourselves.
on Wednesday, all bets are off.
We can just do whatever we want.
If you're here now, you deserve it.
It's true. It is Super Week. I think it's the first time LCS might have ever been live on a Wednesday. Even back in the day, it was Thursday, Friday.
No. The very first Super Week ever.
Oh, you're right, because it was Thursday, Friday. But
in the LCS studio in Season 3 was a 12-game Super Wednesday, and they advertised it with like a Teemo and stuff.
God.
We went from four-game days, because it was an 8-team league, to a 12-game day.
That sounds great. We should bring that back.
Yeah, let's not
But that was on
ever
Wednesday.
do that.
Super Wednesday. It took like 12 hours.
Super awful. Anyways, it's not awful anymore. We got patch 13.3 coming in. This is the big support patch. What has caught everyone's eye about this patch?
For me, it's the Nautilus pick. We're already seeing a big change in bot side of the map. We're seeing Kai'Sa Nautilus, and we're seeing Xayah Rakan. And Nautilus has got a bunch of damage in his abilities. I think he's actually pretty good right now. So I'm expecting to see a lot of it since it's already being picked. So that might just change things up.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nautilus is one of the supports we'd kind of already seen people being play if they wanted to play an engaged support. The ones we've seen here are pretty much what Nautilus and Pyke. We've seen a little bit of Leona in other leagues as well.
Yeah.
I am super curious though, because there's a lot of other stuff going on in bot lane that I am actually a huge fan of engaged supports. I want them to come back.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit hesitant to say that they will come back, considering that 2v2 bot is still so important, and like bot prio is so important.
That part of the meta hasn't changed. The only thing is like the Umbral Glaive.
I was about to say the same thing, yeah.
Have not really been hit, but the AD carry spammers for support is maybe a little diminished. And like things like Braum will always become more relevant if other melee champions are coming in. Alistar's really interesting to me, especially with the AP buffs. Mid lane, top lane, Alistar, first some solo lane rumblings.
Nope.
Yeah,
Grass is not like that.
I'm not sold on
Triforce, run forward and punch him once.
I do think the Umbral Glaive cooldown nerf is a big one. I don't think it's going to be big enough to move certain supports like Ashe. I think she will still be really strong, but probably seeing a little bit more vulnerabilities bot lane with Nautilus opening up. I think that will probably change things a bit. So
yeah, can we keep the patch notes up?
Yeah, I want to see that a little bit.
Just for my reference as well. I'm curious about Jarvan, because that's just a straight up buff, right? His shield just has an AD ratio on it now, so River might be able to play it.
Thank God, man. That W was terrible.
I mean, if I had to go one more week without seeing River play Jarvan.
I know, right?
But that's big. The Annie one is miscategorized balance team. That is not a nerf.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hot fix nerf, but the other, I assume, because this is the hot fix, to be clear.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was hot fix nerfed yesterday, but it was giga buffed before. And like in terms of actually moving the needle for pro, kind of what I found is nerfs are more likely to change what you see in pro play. So like K'Sante was significantly nerfed, and he was a meta top laner. So just by the fact that he's removed, we're going to see more variation. Buffs need to be really big to actually show a big change, because it needs to. You're so practiced on the things that you're used to doing. So this year it's the Ashe, Jhin. I was going to say crap, but like range supports.
Crap's not a bad word, Jet. You're okay.
Well, I mean, some people like it, but all of the supports I think are probably dying to get back to like the ability to face check bushes and start fights and engage. And it's a continuation in a long line of buffing the support damage and making the durability patch irrelevant. Like it just seems like every time.
Hey man, Rakan got healing on his Q.
But Nautilus does more damage, Thresh does more damage now.
Yeah.
If they are strong enough, I do think those will make a reemergence.
The Annie support is super interesting to me just because we did see it last night.
Barrel.
In the KT game.
Barrel.
He got first blooded like in the first minute. Because they kind of collapsed on him. One thing I thought was really interesting about that game, there were points where you could see like, okay, this is how strong this can actually be. But KT in that game also did a good job of kind of hard targeting bot, right? So they got the first blood onto the Zeri, and then they were constantly sending BDD down or Cuz down to like cover that lane, which is why I'm really curious to see like what is going to affect, like how many of these changes are we going to have to eventually like punt the 2v2 into something that's more like interesting and interactive with supports roaming, with engaged supports. Because like I said, I'm very biased towards that rather than like straight up 2v2.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Annie can make it in today. I hope we get to see her. One thing that won't be making it in, Aurelion Sol, despite how excited everyone is for this champion.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It counts as a new champion, so it's not enabled for the first week of this patch. I think it's coming in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, it usually is 3 weeks at least for a champion like rework.
Yeah.
A rework tier.
So, unfortunately, not going to be seen this week. Speaking of this week, let's pull up the schedule for this weekend. It is a super week. It means 3 games for each team. We are wondering who of the teams this week is most likely to go 3-0 other than FlyQuest. FlyQuest, because that's the easy answer, both because they're 6-0 and also they have a relatively easy schedule this week. But who are you guys looking at?
C9, probably? I think C9 has a chance to 3-0.
They play Dig,
Right?
Immortals, and TL.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah.
I would say their toughest game on that schedule is definitely Friday.
Yeah. So I know you asked the question about 3-0, but I'll talk about a team that has the highest chance of like shooting up.
I know you asked that question. I'm going to ignore it.
Like, because it's close.
Question and
Because
answer.
it's
Ask
low.
my
You're going to say Golden Guardian.
I'd
Yeah,
like to tell you
because,
the
like-
team that is
Because to your point, like last week, you wanted to hit on the point of like strength of schedule. They got, there were a few teams, they were one of them that got brutalized by strength of schedule, and now they're going up against TS7 day 1, day 2 Dignitas, and then the third one is the hardest one versus 100 Thieves. So like I'm expecting a loss there. But that's a team that I think, I don't think it's gonna be a 3-0, but there's a high chance of a 2-1, which means like they got a 2-0 last week. This week looks like a really easier strength of schedule. They're a team that can just shoot up where they were 0-4 to the begin.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that both them and Team Liquid end the first round robin at 4-5, and suddenly they're in that like kind of 5th, 6th race and potentially making playoffs when none of us were really projecting that. I don't think any of us had them in our power rankings in top 6.
I think you should have just said Golden Guardians is most likely to go. Like, they're a dark horse to go 3-0.
Yeah,
They just have to pull off
they
one
are a
upset.
dark
Yeah,
horse.
TSM, Dignitas, and then 100 Thieves. They could win against 100 Thieves.
I just aggressively don't think that will happen. But I agree. Like that's a huge potential for them, which will change a lot of the community like tune and tone over like that team.
Yeah, EG might do it as well.
I was about to point out EG.
It could also fall flat on his face right away because that's like the best game of the day that we have right off the bat. But once they get through 100 Thieves, if they can just beat TL and Immortals, they'd have it as well. So
Jat just proven on game 1 of 15.
yeah, it's gonna be EG.
It's a risky bet for that reason, but it's true. If they get through that, they can probably beat Team Liquid and then Immortals as well.
It's that reminds me. Have you ever seen Uncut Gems?
Yes.
That movie. He puts like he does this big parlay bet, and the first one is like the tip off, right? Like it could just be wrong, and the rest of the parlay is over. So that's why EG's a risky one.
Yeah, so a very exciting weekend for Super Week as we end the first round robin. Heading into that, we did ask the community to send who they thought was their most underrated LCS players this split. Let's see who we have come up with.
I love this.
Alex Legendary, a bunch of numbers, says Sven for sure. Everything good he does often turns into, but he will suck next patch.
Did Alex watch the podcast?
Yeah.
The dive with
possible.
Ben?
It's possible.
Because he kind of talked about that. Can I steal the
Yeah, no,
content
this is,
from
if
the
you
podcast?
agree with him, you can hop
Yeah,
in.
I just thought it was super interesting. So like Sven talked a lot about how he hates the narrative that he can't play melee supports. And then he pointed to his actual record with melee supports, even though Cloud9 was in 5th, it's because they started Summer Split 0-3, and then like he played melee supports against T1 at Worlds.
Yeah.
He's like, well, we would have just lost even if I was on Yuumi and Lulu. But then also I thought what was interesting is he doesn't get enough credit for playing the Enchanters.
Yeah.
Which is actually quite true. Like, and that was one of my arguments, and I still probably think he's better at Enchanters than the melee supports in comparison to the rest of the league. Because I feel like Sven is such a grinder, and since range supports weren't meta when he basically became a support, he just actually is a more experienced Lulu and Yuumi than a lot of the other veteran supports in the league because he just plays so much more.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting too because I don't know what Sven is rated in the community. He's like not, people talk about him a lot, but it's almost not like gameplay related. It's like, oh, he had a funny take. This guy's hilarious. He's like so insightful.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the community puts him 4th or 5th or 2nd in the league. Like, I think the definition of underrated heavily depends on what you think they are, because he was borderline all-pro for people last split. Are they saying that he should definitely be all-pro?
I think all-pro is in the conversation for sure. I would probably place him as a 3rd. Like right now, I'd place Vulcan, who's having an amazing split thus far, to be quite high. And then I think right now the problems, usually you'd have the conversation about Corey JJ, but he's having a pretty poor split so far. So then that leaves the support pool wide open. So why wouldn't he make top 3? I think is already a good challenge. So I think it's a great challenge. I think this is a good take from Alex about him being, you know, maybe not talked about as much as people want him to. So that'll start up.
Well, especially since a lot of the supports we've seen, right, have been also AD carries, right? So as much as we've like joked and we had the whole 1v1 where Sven beat Berserker in like an AD carry matchup, like he is naturally predisposed to be able to pick these up really easily and play them. And I also feel like that's probably where he's not getting a lot of credit as well, because it's like, oh, of course, he was an AD carry, like he can play it, but like you should give him credit for that additionally.
Yeah, I do have to ask, like, why legendary 33284? Like, why those 5 numbers? Surely you can find a
Zip
different...
code?
I don't
You're trying hard.
5 numbers. Could be a
such a simple name, too. He's like, Alex. You'd think it would be like legendary 87. Like, that's probably available.
True.
Make it easier to find you. I don't know.
Common pin number
about
used
that.
for things.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
God.
just, this is my security code.
All right, so we have a couple other people that we have underrated. Next one up is Chime. A lot of support love going on right now. Derek.
Oh, I know this guy. He is a rabid TSM fan. So I'm sure, by the way.
Instantly discrediting him, Rash.
Look, I've seen his tweets. I'm pretty sure the T is actually TSM unless if he's changed his name. Because, yes, even though I've discredited you instantly, I think that Chime is a shining spot for this team. I know last week we talked about like solo off of his Scion play, and we've also talked about Boogie on his Elise, even if he's gotten off of Elise, like the fact that he is more of an ignition piece for his team. But Chime, even last year, I felt like was an extremely consistent player, also a playmaker. Outside of his Bard, like his Ashe is something that I enjoy watching, because there was that week 1 where he was like nailing every ulti, it felt like. And he's working with his junglers pretty consistently. So I think that he has been their best player consistently. And I don't remember a game where he's like, you played poorly this game. Like, you are the reason why. I don't see that from him.
No, I think as a young player who joined a really tough situation, stepping into the middle of TSM, like the trade from Golden Guardians in the middle of last year.
Yeah.
I feel like I watch a lot of young guys in the LCS join one of these teams. And
then disappear forever.
Yeah, they just like, oops, and then they have a bad taste in their mouth and no one ever touches that player again. Like, I'm actually very happy with how Chime was able to step into a very difficult situation. So I wonder how good his future
those
can get.
situations suck, man. Like, it's so weird because you do judge off of how they did on the biggest stage, but oftentimes the situations are so bad. So like a lot of times, I know of several Academy players who just like don't want to enter those bad situations.
Yeah.
But Chime is an example of how it can work out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it didn't work out for him on Golden Guardians when he was thrusted into that same situation.
Sure.
There were a lot of times where he played poorly and he looked bad. And so when you get thrusted back into Academy, you're like, damn, I need to, like, the next situation better be right.
Top 5 teams only. I'm not.
It's like, please, I'm begging. So the fact that he was thrusted in that kind of similar situation, this time he's on, like, he played well on that situation last year, and now he's been in a situation where he's like, with the AD carry that he wanted from the very beginning, like he's with Neo, they're both performing. It's a nice thing to see.
Now moving ahead with another support. All supports this week, I guess.
Wow.
Underrated.
Is it because they play
Boogie.
Enchanters and people can't tell if they're good or bad?
Well,
Yeah, I think
also,
so.
like, AD carries are popping off, so then I think hopefully people will start
True.
to look at, like, who is their bot lane partner? Because I think this is an example of who he is really weird to place within a split. I feel people underrate him, but also, like, generally as a player. I remember when we were doing our top 10 players of all time last year, I actually had him as number 9 or number 10, even though he didn't appear on my mid lane list or my support list, because it's hard to rate him for that position. But as a player, he's super valuable. And I think, honestly, he's had, even in their 04, you could see a lot of really good things he was doing with the team. He's actually roamed more and tried to affect other lanes outside of the 2v2 more than any other support in the league. So I think even when Golden Guardians were really struggling at the beginning, he was playing very, very well.
Yeah, he's always been a bit more of a playmaker than like Enchanter in terms of the duality of supports. So it's like not exactly his meta. Plus, he's always brings a lot of intangibles is the value. And so he's just not a player who's instantly going to jump off the rift and be like, that guy's killing it right now. And it's just a weird meta, too, with how dominant the AD carry position is. The supports by necessity are valuable, but
hard to notice.
They don't get the spotlight.
Yeah, and that's something Sven said in your podcast.
Yeah.
Is you can have an AD carry game where you're 10-0 and you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right?
He's like
there's an element of obviously you did something because you're positioning well enough in team fights, but it's like he wasn't ahead in lane, he has a good front line, they had good engages.
He hit the closest target.
He just gets 10 kills. And you're like, well, I guess he gets 10 kills, so he must have done really well.
Player of the game!
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how are you ever going to, like, what do you have to do on Lulu to win a player of the game?
Yes.
It's like, well, it's probably impossible.
Yes.
You probably can't do it.
You know, it's so, for me, because I kind of disagree with this take, and the problem is...
You think who he sucks?
No, what?
You disagree. He's underrated.
You can't do that to your boy Jay like that.
Well, it's about like, when you're talking about underrated, it's dependent on your surroundings.
Yeah.
What information are you taking in? I've only really seen praise for Huhi in their losses. So, but...
They blamed him a lot for 100 Thieves last year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of like, there are going to be people that think less of him because of what happened last year. And then this year, he's obviously been the shining point of his team in their losses. But you can say underrated because people just don't look at the teams that are losing. So like, so if you're not looking at the team and you're not really saying much when he's the one that's performing, yeah, underrated in that sense. But if anyone's pointing to who's the winning point of this team, it has been Huhi. So that's literally the only way in which I can disagree with the take.
Yeah, you found the angle.
I found the angle. I
He's not underrated. He's just good.
I do appreciate the point, though, about like how meta influences perception of pro players. And even in that conversation, Sven was like, he doesn't blame community or casters or stuff for not giving MVPs to Lulus and Yumis. You're kind of, in a sense, weirdly enough in this sport, beholden to the meta for like how much you can shine. And like top lanes are never winning an MVP in an Ornn Scion meta, you know, and it's why it's so difficult sometimes.
Yeah, Thresh gets player of the game when Thresh is OP.
Yep.
I think this is what happens. He landed another one.
Wait, didn't Winsome get player of the game for his Nautilus? Did he, or did Prince still get it?
No, that would have been.
I was going to say, it probably was Prince.
He's got like 12 kills or something.
Yeah.
I definitely gave 1 or 2 player of the game so far to supports.
Right, but then you just got
outvoted.
I
did.
Yeah.
You're just.
I know I
You
gave
likely got
Huhi at
outvoted.
least.
But I've given a lot more to Prince and Berserker and Doublelift. Yeah. All right, so final one, breaking the mold finally out of support, is a top laner on Immortals. It's Revenge getting some love from the community.
Revenge probably. He's like not even sure.
He's like, I didn't really watch the games. I think he's doing good. Yeah, plenty of people don't recognize how good of a player he is.
This is another take from actually the Sven interview where he talked about how this is his best, he feels, year that Revenge has had in his career right now. As short as it is, of course, like Revenge right now is playing out of his mind. And it sucks because they're losing. And that goes back to the Huhi point where it's like people will not recognize an outstanding performer in a losing team, but he is an outstanding performer. When they've won, it's because this is a great example. The ult through the Azir ulti and he's able to get a pick. Like, this was a messy game, but a lot of it was based off of what Revenge was able to accomplish in team fights. So it's nice to see a player that is constantly improving, and I think it's worthy of recognition.
And then talking to him, one of the super interesting things I thought is he was like, yeah, I previously was kind of known as someone who I would take a counter matchup, right? And then they would try to pour resources into him, and then he'd be in a side lane, like doing a 1-4 or 1-3-1. This year, he said his goal, and I think at that time, Kenby was the jungler with the lowest amount of top lane, like jungle procs.
Yeah.
He was like, this year, I want to be known as like someone who's stable. They're always going to be able to look at their top and be like, he's a good laner. He's holding his own. I don't need resources to carry. So that's something that I know like he as a player has said he really wants to focus on.
There it is.
Yeah, I think part of why he's struggled in the past, and this is something that could easily be misinterpreted, but like,
No.
I'm ready.
split push win conditions like don't exist. Like
They're very, very hard.
It's not a way to win League of Legends. Like you can still pick a counter matchup, but you still have to be good in team fighting. And I think so much of the in the games where he would get advantages last year and they'd lose, he'd have like 30, 40 CS up, but like he wouldn't find a way to team fight. He'd just find a way to build his own advantage. And all the best top laners are just good team fighters, right? And the team needs to be in synchrony with that. And when they've won, all those highlights are team fight clips. Like you just don't win League by like, oh yeah, I got a side lane kill. and then the Nexus exploded. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. You have to team fight.
I will say it's hilarious because I remember that last year's IMT where it's like a lot of the losing plays, like, I don't know what a top laner can do in this situation. If your bot side 4v4 loses, you're like, well, be a better cheerleader.
What you need to do in that situation is like, you need to be there. Like, you need to have your 2,000 gold advantage. You need to be a 5v4. Like, you can't just get a bunch of resources and then expect the 4v4 to go even. You know what I mean? So it's not obviously all his fault, but that would be a reason why, like, he is. You talk to a lot of other top laners, like, yeah, Revenge is good.
Yes.
Because he's good in lane. Players respect that. But it's just about meshing it with the rest of the team.
And Immortals was struggling, for most of his career. So it's like they weren't going to win that many wins anyways. And he's getting funneled, so it looks extra bad in some of those situations. Anyways, moving along, got a couple more people to try and slam through. We got Gory up next.
Gory? I love this. This is the most we've seen written.
Yeah, whoa.
I can't read it. It's too much.
The most underrated player is Gory. GG's success is in large part to their mid jungle, and they have the potential to end the first round robin at 5-4.
Bang!
I agree.
Ooh, there
Raz
you go.
heavily disagrees, by the way.
Oh, wait a minute!
He heavily doesn't think
Raz
they're
is
going to win.
just throwing them under the bus.
I did say the last game would be a loss. That was
So I
my
believe
prediction.
it'll be in large part to Gory.
So, I love this. It's like, why haven't we been talking about Gory? This man hasn't been in the country for a little bit. So, a reason for why he's not being spoken of. But yeah, I mean, he's been a great point of success. I love the fact that he's been moving. I kind of expected him to be sticking mid lane, for them to be playing around him like solely, but he's been somebody that has been pretty active around the map, which I like, and they've been finding wins now off of it.
And I think the important thing too is like the team has been able to A, rely on him and River working together, but B, when they do pour resources into him, like for example, Huhi roaming mid, right, to help him get a kill. Like after that, he pays it back by doing well in team fights, setting up in side lanes for skirmishes there. So like I was pretty hesitant to see how Gory was going to be able to do, because I know I watched him primarily in LPL, and he kind of struggled a lot there. But he has been a really good point for this team as they have continued to improve. And I think having him here, to your point, Raz, and actually being able to go through that practice going into last week was obviously a visible improvement and showed in their wins.
Yeah, because like that's their intended core, is that you're playing around Gory with your like 3 Korean-speaking players, in which it's like River, Huhi, and Gory. Even the replays you're seeing, a lot of it is him playing off side lane and working with River, or Huhi being able to find ways to like roam and aid so they have numbers advantage. So if they do that consistently, yes, they're winning. And I think that's a huge addition, is that they're finally able to get him into the country and start working.
Yeah, and it was super lucky that they played the best teams when they didn't have them.
Like, you're going to lose them anyway.
It actually was. Like, if you're going to have to be playing with a sub and not have much practice, the schedule actually works out really well for them.
That is true.
When for most teams, playing nothing but the top 5 in the first 3 weeks would be a disaster.
Yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't have minded, though, going up against the good teams as a skill check, see how they're doing.
With Young? No.
No, I'm saying
later?
Gory.
They
Like,
can do that in the second round
I know,
robin.
but
I'll
it's
make it playoffs and stuff.
now everyone's discrediting. Oh, it's just the bad teams.
Raz still doesn't think they can win with them. Like,
Wait,
I think
against
that's
100
zero.
Thieves. I'm dying on that hill. Against 100 Thieves, it will not be a win.
We'll see if you're correct at the end of the weekend. We first have to get to the first game of this Super Week. Let's take a look.
FlyQuest. They are 6-0. They've beaten all of the top teams. It is too soon to say if they're going to go 18-0. But, like, are they going to go 18-0?
The Kai'Sa flank. France hits 3 kills for FlyQuest. We've got a super week coming up, so a lot can change there. Berserker firing. Penta-kill. Now they're going to chase him down. Pioshik wants it. Harry has nobody to body block. Ace in the hole takes him down. Doublelift's going to get another triple kill. Is it a quadra kill for Doublelift? Evil geniuses punish FlyQuest for getting too aggressive. A beautiful 2-man bubble.
Doesn't feel like everything is set in stone.
That was the fastest game for the Spring Split, and they want to continue that lead further. Oh! Beautiful stuff from Huhi. Did you see that, Azale?
We're seeing a lot of these teams that are looking like they could potentially be a threat.
All righty, looks like a good week.
There it
Gonna kick it off with
is.
EG versus
games.
100 Thieves. We're going to do something we did before, which is what is the most hype matchup for people at home? What are they most excited about? In Twitch chat, spam, I believe it's top or bot. I don't know what tricodes we're using. Yeah,
Yeah.
There we go.
You're
I don't
right.
think you need to put in lane.
It's FBI versus Doublelift, which would be bot,
bot.
or Ssumday Tenacity, top.
And we're going to pitch you on the storylines if you're unfamiliar with them. So you two, I think, are up first to break down why Doublelift versus FBI is the hyper of the two matchups.
Well, because it's the right answer.
Oh.
I'm late, Raz. My mic pack fell out. I'm coming.
Yeah, I did you.
Slow but surely. See, I held on to my mic packs when I was running up. So make your case first.
I mean, we're agreeing with each other.
I mean,
but it's just better. So Doublelift is the greatest AD carry of all time, and he's been going up against all the other players who have been top of AD carry in the LCS in his absence. He did lose to Prince, but he has been doing so well against everyone else. And FBI is the guy who, like, was toe-to-toe with Doublelift the last time Doublelift won the split. He was on that Golden Guardians team that pushed TSM to the brink, and he's, I feel like, steadily improved, even though he hasn't been flashy. So seeing them go up against each other again is just very exciting.
Exactly. I remember that time in which you were talking about where he was like the last time he was playing in competitive, and he conceded that FBI and Huhi at the time was like the better bot lane, right? Like that's what made it difficult for them. And so he was basically talking about that next generation and FBI, the AD carries coming in that were coming up. And so the fact that FBI is finding renewed strength alongside Vulcan makes this so damn hype. In fact, even Jojo knows about it, talking about it in social media, how he's going to send Doublelift back to streaming. Like, the shit talking doesn't just stem with the bot lane, it's the rest of the team knowing that this lane matters.
Yeah, Doublelift does have a target on his back.
Okay, so that's
right.
your pitch. Emily and I are going to counter and tell you why you're wrong and why top lane is more exciting. Emily, you can kick us off.
So we're going full narrative here. Remember, this guy was supposed to be on a 6-man roster last year, was not, because Ssumday started playing so well. So now he has a massive revenge angle here, right? He's like, you know what? You kept me from playing all last year because you were so good. I am going to prove that I am the better top laner.
It's the jailer versus the jailee. He was in academy jail for like 2 or 3 years. Everyone was hyped on Tenacity. It was like, when are we finally going to get to see him? 100 Thieves didn't want to move him away. They wanted to invest in him, but Ssumday was just too good. And so this is kind of the matchup for Tenacity to say, hey, management, you made the right call, sticking with me. He's going to defend the fact that they went with him instead of Ssumday, who they made 3 straight finals with, won their first title with him, and Tenacity now has to prove this. And so I agree, it's not Doublelift, but not everything has to be about Doublelift in the LCS, all right? This is hype.
I have a confession.
What's that?
Yo.
I just like being right, so I know Twitch chat is going to vote for Doublelift.
Yeah, there it is.
But
I love
genuinely, I'm actually more excited for Tenacity versus Ssumday, but I'm going to be right. Do we have
You're
the
just
answers?
a populist.
Yeah.
We'll
I
keep
mean,
you
you
guys-
just hedge your bet on both?
Last time
I'm
I
gonna be
said
right.
top. Last time I said top.
Aha, we did it.
Yeah.
Good job. It was us.
It was obviously going
It
to
was
be
all
top.
us. Good argument.
Which means your argument was awful.
There we go.
The last
Work
time
on it.
I said top, it was, I believe, Fudge versus Impact.
Yeah.
And there was like a bunch of solo kills in that lane, and it was great. It was a good time.
Obviously, these
Just
two guys have scrimmed against each other a ton, so Ssumday and Tenacity will know all their ins and outs. Before we go to the casters, quickly, let's pull up predictions, see if we have any surprise upsets. I'm sure we'll be split on this one.
It's probably going to be at the end of the day.
It's probably going to be this one. What do you mean? It's EG versus 100.
Oh, yeah.
EG.
True.
Oh.
Oh,
So the reason I've actually
Whoa,
chose
you
a
put
few
CLG
upsets.
too. You're crazy.
I chose a few upsets mostly because usually by this time of the split, the teams that have been failing, in this case CLG, would have like really knuckled down, grinded. Upsets usually happen around week 4, week 5, around there, and so I'm betting on it.
yeah.
I don't know if there's any data behind that.
Yeah.
They just need some time to get
And
familiar with
also,
each other.
I think some of the core issues that Team Liquid have will still exist, and they will just take every fight. So I'm actually just expecting CLG to be able to overperform and Team Liquid to stay doing what they've been doing for the past few weeks.
All right, Raz calling his shot today. A lot of upsets
I'm for it.
predicted. We'll see
Yeah.
if he's correct about any of them. And with that, let's go ahead and get Super Week underway.
Welcome to the LCS and the first super week here of Spring 2023. I am Captainflowers, joined by Kobe and special guest Bwipo here for the first game, and he'll be back for the third one later on today as well. Bwipo, welcome back to the casting desk, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you.
Yeah, me too. I'm good to be here.
Yeah.
It's very nice to be back.
You
I
came
enjoy
for
it.
a banger game.
Oh yeah, this one's gonna be really good.
This is a super exciting one. The analyst test was going over some of the narratives between these two teams. They're also tied in the standings, of course, at 4-2. Everybody's kind of behind FlyQuest, but that's that's a separate issue. This one is super exciting to me, also because of the jungle matchup. I feel like Inspired and Closer have both been playing extremely well, and they're two super proactive junglers too.
I agree with you. I was actually looking at this. They didn't bring it up in the pregame because the other roles look a little bit cooler. But I really like the idea of the two European, like ex-European junglers fighting each other. I feel like both of them, especially Closer, is more of an NA jungler now. Inspired's almost getting
Yeah, we
there.
claim him. He's been here a long time. A long time.
But it's really interesting because I think when I was actually jungling myself in that one split way back, I looked at these two junglers. I thought they were like polar opposites. But like Inspired was like really much about farming, control, making sure that he's good in the game himself. And I feel like Closer is much more about taking risks, getting in there, looking to gank with lanes. And I think Sejuani's been super successful at finding mid ganks. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to get another Sejuani game where I see the enemy Azir or a control mage get jailed by the Glacial Prison or not.
Alrighty, quick reminder to everybody as we're getting into our first draft, our first champion select of the day here. We have moved patches. It is no longer patch 13.1b. We are on patch 13.3, including the most recent hot fixes that were applied to that patch. So hopefully things are going to get shaken up here a little bit. The drafts have become very predictable back on 13.1, so we'll see how this change switches that up. Zillion banned away, targeted at Bjergsen first off by EG. Varus banned alongside it, with Maokai and Elise banned out by 100 Thieves, focusing on the jungle here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the bottom lane still here, with Doublelift having a pretty good Caitlyn performance, plus Zeri Lulu is available. We could get the classic trade with Zeri Lulu, Lucian Nami, and they're continuing focusing on junglers here, so it does look like bottom lane will be wide open.
Sejuani priority will probably still be high from what I understand. So with Maokai, Wukong, and Elise out, we're going to have to see. Oh, looks like there's going to be a Zeri first pick, which makes sense. This is what Doublelift's been picking most of the time. We will see, obviously, what they decide on having. I'm actually surprised they choose to go for the Caitlyn. So they're saying we're going to smash lane here. What Doublelift has been doing is playing Zeri into the Lucian Nami. So he's been saying, I'm going to take the scaling counterpart to these hard-winning lanes. In this case, he's challenging the Caitlyn from FBI.
Yeah, I always really like the double poke lanes of the Ezreal Karma when paired against any sort of Caitlyn lane, regardless of what EG support is going to be. And it does look with some of the hovers here, that's probably the direction that they're going. Plus, getting the guaranteed engage of the Vi as they are whittling down on the junglers. It does mean EG have plenty of time to draft counter engage. Whenever you see a super early Vi like that, I'm always thinking about things that have big AoE counter engages.
Exactly, and they secure the Karma for themselves. They keep that away from the Caitlyn. They know they don't have to pick their AD carry yet because EG's already got their own. Caitlyn Lux, a classic pairing. Lots of danger there if that binding hits.
So very smart by 100 Thieves. The enemy AD carries will be locked in, so you're going to pick up your priority support, your priority jungler, and you're going to get your AD carry in the wraparound. So as much as you saw them hover Ezreal, Ezreal's very likely to be coming on 3, regardless of what they pick on 2-3, because this is the bot lane pairing that you feel most comfortable with.
Right.
Ezreal Karma into the Caitlyn Lux is something that a lot of players have been playing, specifically because you can actually match the range in the poke, and Ezreal just either Qs to poke together with Karma, or he starts shooting Mystic shots on the wave, stacks up his attack speed, and then he can actually compete with Caitlyn's push. So never mind. I got
Switching it up.
He's fixed Jinx, which is I actually like it a lot because, like I mentioned, Doublelift's been playing these scaling champions into the bully lanes and saying, you know what, you guys aren't good enough to put me far enough behind, which is very much in theme for his brand. And I love to see Jinx come out exactly with that idea.
Getting an auto attack champion that can cut through this Sejuani, looking at that 5-on-5. I also like pairing Jinx with stuff that is single target, like Vi. You can lock somebody down to get the Jinx excited really early on, if they can get some good picks here. But now we're obviously going to focus on the solo lanes because everywhere else has been taken care of. 100 Thieves, the Bjergsen camp, they're more worried about banding away some of JoJo's volatile melee matchups.
Yeah.
Pretty big difference in style between these two mid laners.
Makes a lot of sense. Jack's ban comes out. It's been a blind pick sometimes, so you can pick it on 4 and get counter pick from mid if you leave it open, but also make some of the blind picks a little bit easier if you're looking for some carry options blind pick. Now, I do think it'll be a tank versus tank match up top with these bot lanes, I imagine, you know, especially with the changes coming to crit last patch. However, they're still relevant now. So with 2 huge hyper carries in the Caitlyn and Jinx squaring off, what we really want to see is frontline and crowd control to really set them up.
Yeah, and some respect paid to JoJo with the Tristana ban as well.
Yep.
After last weekend with the demolition that he was able to throw out. All right, 100 Thieves, they got to throw down solo lane first.
Probably going to be a mid lane control mage and then blind pick tank here, and then you're going to answer with either a Camille type counter pick to split push if you don't feel like your 5v5 is good enough, or in this case, I feel like their 5v5 is very solid. We're going to see a tank versus tank matchup. Now, obviously, this is my expectation because the meta has shifted a little bit.
Right.
I personally feel like with all these crit changes, it's going to make a lot of sense to play tanks into these bruiser blinds like Renekton and Jax. Very likely, I think there's going to be a tank answer here, like a Sion and Ornn is what I expect. Obviously, there's a lot of tanks available in League of Legends, so we'll see what exactly he wants to play. And a Sylas.
Sylas locked in as the final pick of the draft here for Evil Geniuses, which can also be a deterrent to a pick like Ornn, where the ultimate gives so much value when stolen away. Sion ulti not going to have as much effect in the fights. Of course, there's a lot of utility behind that, but it's not quite the same team fight impact as the Ornn horn running over the entire enemy team.
I mean, I'm just so excited. We were talking about how we're looking forward to junglers in this. There's so many options for Inspired to go to. Playing Sejuani when you have double melee solo laners, and especially like Renekton, just feels really, really fun to play off top triangle. And then they've got constant pushing Caitlyn Lux bottom lane, that needs attention as well. So going to be hyper focused on the choices that these two junglers make early on in the game.
And I love the fact that we get the Gragas. We were talking in the green room an hour ago, back while we were waiting for the games to start today. And Bwipo, I believe it was you who said you think Gragas is like one of the greatest competitive champions of all time, and you wanted to see more play from him.
I just specified in jungle because a lot of these junglers are really weak early game, which is one of the reasons why he didn't get played in the jungle in the past, is like he's too weak early, but Vi and Sejuani are very weak early as well. Now, he gets played in the top lane. I'm still happy to see him because obviously Explosive Cask is a fantastic way to start fights, also to disengage fights. He's just a champion, kind of does everything. Has range, he's good in short range, he's good at long range, good in medium range. He's really just a fantastic champion all around, so I'm happy to see Gragas get locked in. Now, playing against the Renekton, I do think that lane matchup can be oppressive if the Renekton knows how to leverage his ultimate. So there's no kill pressure in this lane. I'm just going to jump into the lane matchup because I'm very passionate about this matchup because I don't think a lot of players know this, but there's not a lane where there's kill pressure on Gragas. He can never really die one-on-one if he goes tank Gragas, which I assume is what you're going to play into Renekton. AP is a little harder.
Okay.
So you have to use the Renekton ultimate to gain advantages slowly. So you just pop it in lane, you show up, you pop it to chunk him, and then you gain the Fury as you're just laning. And eventually you accrue a large gold lead because Gragas can't keep up with sustain because Renekton's ultimate is a really huge power spike.
Party in the bottom lane.
Oh, wow.
Everybody's invited.
Let's do it.
Big LCS party. They all show up.
It's like a standoff. Who's going to throw the first spell? No one. I'm waiting for Luxie go thrown into the bush, and Busio still not feeling the
there we go.
contra Q.
All right.
Cheers for the first spell.
There we go. Not bad at all.
I really did like your point on the top lane, though, and the point of this last pick, 400 Thieves, kind of being a nullifying pick, does allow more focus onto, hey, trying to get Bjergsen some priority, push in this Sylas from mid lane and get it to bleed over to the rest of the map. And maybe they can do something about this bottom lane that you expect to be the war over pushing.
That's awesome. Obviously, what's always intriguing about picking 3 winning lanes or like 2 winning lanes and then a pick like Sylas into Azir is Sejuani has all the options in the world, but it's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes having too many options means that you lose focus on where you need to get gold leads. Because this game, obviously, I'm really worried for EG's composition if they start falling behind, because none of their champions can actually take the brunt of a hard engage from Gragas or Vi with chompers underneath that. Like, Sejuani doesn't get enough gold income that she can just straight up face tank a hard initiation with chompers underneath there. She's probably going to die at the start of the fight. So it's going to be really pivotal that EG finds gold leads in multiple lanes, because I think one lane is not going to be enough because they get outscaled in all 3. Now, Sylas' scaling is very good, but it's conditional scaling. And why that's relevant is you don't always get the E in a Sylas. Someone has to create space for you to get in there.
Yeah.
And against the composition where if EG gets hard engaged on first, it's very likely Jinx is already going to get excited. That might not be enough for Sylas to turn around the fight. That might already be a doomed fight. So I am concerned for EG, but hopefully we're going to be able to see some action from them in the early laning phase.
Well, right now, nothing too spicy just yet. Tri-cam view's gonna show us Ssumday with the early push in top, Doublelift and Busio with that push in bottom.
Yeah, and look at this sneak around the wards. There were 2 wards put here to keep Sejuani out of this bottom river by the side of 100 Thieves, and yet Inspired was able to sneak around all of that vision. Let's see if it pays off at all, though.
What can he get from it? What's it gonna be? Closer showing up bottom, seeing if maybe there's a play to be made down there.
Waiting quite a while here.
That pig is hatching an egg in the brush. He's been sitting there for so long. Who knew?
I don't know if that's how pigs work, dude.
Who knew?
Both junglers are really interested in finding these level 3 ganks. It's 3 minutes and they've only done 3 camps. A lot of
Closer's ready, finds the
Full
Q
charge
over the wall. Another auto attack will do it. And Doublelift gets excited for first blood. They're gonna get one back in mid lane with money going over to Jojo with a kill on Bjergsen right after the fact.
Yep, both junglers, as you're trying to get it out, are so interested in these level 3 ganks and the bottom lane. Everybody in the current meta has been talking about how important it is for junglers to get the early ganks off towards bottom lane, and even more so in this matchup here. Doublelift did have to flash for it, so maybe there's an angle for EG to try and punish, but
he has cleanse, so it's going to be difficult, right? You need a Lux Binding or a Sejuani CC to really set that up for you, so I don't think it's going to be that easy. However, we're going to see a replay of how this gank mid happened. Again, super patient by both junglers. You know, it's a bit painful for me to see. Like I said, I jungled a little bit, and seeing both junglers show up with 12 CS at 20 almost? Painful, really. That said, it does pay off in this case, and, well, if it works, why not keep doing it?
Works on both ends. Both junglers can do that.
And
both successful kills.
Both teams also get the money where they want the money to be. You've got the Jinx getting paid in bottom lane for the first blood, and then Sylas having that money to be able to get ahead and make sure that he can be effective in the fights like you were talking earlier.
So Jojo is also going to be able to get a push on wave, it actually looks like, with that Sylas having the extra pressure up there. I wonder if he's going to be able to get anything going here early. Closer's already circling around, though, and pinging for a wrap.
Let's see what he can find. Just going to go up top side here. Use the Scryer's Bloom back into his own territory to make sure there's no wards or no enemy jungler clearing anything out.
I don't want to use this opportunity to talk about opportunities.
Okay, an opportunity of opportunities.
There's no flash on the Lux. Now, Bjergsen died, but he saved his flash. He said, you know what, doesn't look like I'm going to survive this one. I'm just going to take it gracefully, save my summoner spells so I can survive in the future. However, when Karma has flash advantage in this bottom lane, she can mantra W, increasing the root duration and also giving her enough healing that she can flash forward and try to guarantee a route onto the Lux. So if you're in a 2v3 situation, if you guarantee the route onto the flashless Lux, very good chance you'll get a kill there. Now, normally, you're very scared of dying.
We may have a roam timer for that Sylas.
Oh boy,
is that a 4-man play bottom lane at minute 5?
Inspired and Jojo are ready to go. Doublelift's got no way out. Jojo getting his second kill of the match, 5.5 minutes in.
And they do exactly that. They punish Doublelift, the flashless Jinx, using the flash to get the kill early on. They make the wraparound. Sylas roams bottom. Inspired, if you saw, he walked just as the Scuttle Crab disappeared to go all the way around them, coming from behind the tower, and then kind of pushing them so that Doublelift got flanked 3 different angles of pressure on him. Nicely done by Evil Geniuses.
Honestly, a beautiful creative play. Actually, like he still has his Renekton ultimate, so I don't think there's anything scary there, but a nice little try by Tenacity to try to push for an advantage. He will recall here shortly, and nothing's really going to happen in this lane. As soon as Gragas gets his tier, things kind of slow down again. And like I said, Renekton's going to use his ultimate to try and get advantages slowly because no one's going to die. He just attacks the top tower, basically, and starts to chip away. That said, this bot gank was beautiful because I actually think if Doublelift recognized that it was a 4 versus 2 play and he tried to walk through the Sejuani with the summoners to heal from Karma, he probably would have gotten that way. But Sejuani coming from behind the tower looks so scary that you think, oh, I'm going to run away to the river, where Jojo was waiting, ready with all his spells to collect a free kill.
Yeah, information is such a powerful tool here, and that's the big difference maker there, because I completely agree. This Sejuani, more of a a visual fear than the actual
Absolutely.
kill
The
threat.
jump scare.
The thing is, when you dash from that angle, you use your dash in order to get over that wall, which means you have one less CC as Sejuani, and with no melee champions other than Sejuani in the bottom side on the
Running
bottom
at you with a W ready is basically what.
Yeah.
That's what all she's got is throw a W at you, so you can walk through her definitely with the movement speed from Karma Shield and a heal.
What it does mean is that we're now living in a world where Jojo Sylas is 2 early kills and has flash available. So really looking for evil geniuses. This is obviously the star player, you know, that was lauded for so much success in his rookie year. See if he can actually roam around the map and continue this for evil geniuses. Because right now it's a very meager gold lead. Still very winnable 400 Thieves.
Busio forced to flash over the wall there, wanted to exit through the top part of the jungle, but with Inspired right there was no way for him to safely be able to secure the blast cone.
Despite there being so many ganks early on in the game, it's still a very stable game. Everyone's about equal in CS, you know, 5 to 10 difference here or there, but other than that, pretty much a very well-matched game, despite that there have been some very aggressive ganks and creative opportunities. And it looks like EG is going to try and break open the game here, which I do think is necessary.
Oh, nicely done. Doublelift gets rooted up. The damage comes through, but Busio's got some healing ready to go for him. Doublelift survives, but EG is not done yet. Doublelift flashing away as Jojo's ready to go. Just jumps right on top of him, knocks them all down. EG, get both.
Honestly, this was beautifully played by Inspired. Tracking the summoner spells is really the story of this bottom lane experience. The cleanse is down now, has the flash up. Doesn't have cleanse Sejuani ult, just use it to chunk him out. Not a lot of Sejuani players will have the knowledge to just use your Glacial Prison to chunk him out there and set up the kill because he knows Jojo's wrapping around.
Oh, meanwhile, back in mid, 100 Thieves are finally ready to answer the Jojo problem, and it's Bjergsen getting the shutdown.
A critical punish for 100 Thieves here. If they continue to allow Jojo to freely roam from mid lane, ganking bottom over and over without a price, then they're going to lose the game. So that was a very, very good move from Bjergsen as Jojo's trying to come back in time for the big wave at his tower. Really big swing as Closer is able to combine with him for the kill and try and turn it into the Rift Herald.
Looks like there might be a fight here.
They should finish it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not going to finish it.
They're
Rift
scared.
Herald's
Okay.
running out of patience. Inspired walks up to try to tank it here for a little bit as Ssumday trades back and forth with Tenacity and Busio nearby. Closer goes in for the engage and he finds the enemy support. Tenacity's disengage is enough to get Busio away for now. He'll live with 300 HP back underneath the turret. Evil Genius is now going to go back to the Herald and start it up again.
So an interesting sequence there, and I actually think this is what a lot of really good teams do, is they fake contest. So there was only 2 people ready to contest. Jojo still needed to TP and walk all the way there. I do think the Herald could have been finished, and maybe even you could turn on Sejuani there. However, they didn't feel the confidence to pull the trigger and go for that. And like I mentioned, Renekton is just going to use his ultimate, really just to get some health back, get more Fury. More Fury means more health, and that's kind of what you do, because like I said, it's a very stale lane, nothing happens. That said, that whole sequence earlier, I really want to talk about this. The fact that after Jojo gets the double kill on the bottom lane there, at least got 1 kill and then an assist, and then got shot down for 600 gold by Bjergsen. That's a really big deal, because if you have 3 kills in a lane and 0 on another, you have very little gold in comparison. Now, with the 600 gold shutdown going over to the Azir, he's actually going to have his mythic item relatively soon. I believe he has all the gold in his pocket, so he's just looking for an opportunity to recall now.
Yeah, the difference in base is definitely big. But Jojo still, because he got so rich so quickly, got the first mythic in the game as Bjergsen takes a beating but live.
Survives.
Jojo got the first mythic in the game, and it's a scaling mythic in the Rod of Ages. So it's still a really nice power boost to get that stacking early on. Bjergsen, though, nice little escape for him.
Yep, and the Rod of Ages, you can see it already had 1 stack. I saw it back around 10:15, so that means early 9 minutes was around when the item was purchased. Feels really good. That means he's going to have this thing fully charged and get the bonus level from the full charge completion before 20 minutes. So if Evil Geniuses can continue getting Jojo going forward, continue getting him snowballing, I think it's going to be a big issue for 100 Thieves, and that's exactly what EG wants to do. They're going to summon up the Herald mid, use that to put even more money in Jojo's pockets, and keep this Sylas rolling. Now over 1,000 gold ahead of Bjergsen's.
He is rich. He is hella rich. He has first strike as well. So all this money is going to net him more money. So this is something that a lot of people forget about first strike, is it scales up the amount of damage you deal. So if you get fed early, you deal more damage, it's going to yield more gold as the game goes on. So very interesting for a champion like Sylas, because he not only scales incredibly well with gold, but also with experience, which is why Rod of Ages is now popular on him, because a level on him, on a champion like Sylas, where all 3 of his skills scale incredibly well, super lucrative buy because not every champion really enjoys points in every single skill. Azir, for example, points in E, it's not a huge deal. It's nice, but it doesn't change the way his champion behaves. Whereas with Sylas, depending if you max E or W second, it actually changes the way he behaves. Because a lot of Sylas players, the first strike max Q, which is what I'm assuming Jojo is doing.
Yep.
And then if you skill Q into W, you're similar to the old bruiser Sylas, jumps in and fist fights all the time, tries to find always tries to be on top of someone, whereas with EQ, he tries to play the fight a little bit slower. Every ECD, he will try to EQ and then E on top of the target when his Q2 activates. So Sylas, if you didn't know, has a little mark he leaves behind after he casts his Chain Lash. And you really try to CC chain that, right? You get a CC on top of that, that's where his real damage comes from.
Right, it's the second part of the Q, that part that's more easily dodgeable, that's where the burst is loaded,
Yes.
and that's what Jojo's going to be trying to set up, as you say, every time that E is available. It's more of a dodging and weaving style as opposed to what you were talking about, just meatball tank the guy with W.
Yes.
And I do want to point out that we also saw on screen the 100 Thieves taking advantage of that timing window on the recalls to at least get themselves a dragon. So really strong 2,000 gold lead here built up by Evil Geniuses, but at least 100 Thieves were able to scrounge together the dragon. And as far as the first strike goes, I got you with the gold check-in. It's 140 so far, earned by Jojo with the Sylas extra.
Honestly, pretty good for a range versus melee matchup. I'm surprised. Usually, this is a very scaling rune. You take it because all the other runes generally are very good for you, so it allows you to go second win without feeling too bad. Because you can go inspiration into resolve, and generally speaking, the things you pick up there are like free boots, which means you have more money to spend on your mythic item that you can rush. You get second win, so it's a little easier to breathe in the lane, and then you get cosmic insight, which is great because more TPs means I can get the recall and TP back in a rough lane like Azir a little more often.
Speaking of teleports, worth noting that mid laners are both about to have theirs back up, and we're also 10 seconds away from 14 minutes, so those will be unleashed. I'm expecting to see some plays based around those. Jojo in particular has already been very, very active this game, roaming around and being a part of this lead that Evil Geniuses have built for themselves. You're seeing other champions complete those first items here recently. Black Cleaver Rush on Vi. Kobe, I know you've been a huge fan of this item, being a rushable purchase for a lot of champions after the buffs that they got, just strictly becoming a better item. And Closer on that Vi, it's going to be up to him to lock down these targets and sort of find 100 Thieves the opportunity to start a fight in a way that works for them.
Yeah, and I love it on Vi a lot too because the armor shred works with the W armor shred from Vi as well. So you can get right through the Sejuani, and there's 3 meatballs in front of you, 3 melee champions for her to try and just play front to back with too.
So a very important part of EG's composition is crowd control, right? Sejuani with other melee champions means that she can spread around all that CC. She gets stacks from Renekton, she gets stacks from Sylas incredibly quickly, and she gets the CC chain off of Sylas's E2 or Renekton's fully charged stun. And why I'm bringing this up is Mercury tries to have to come online for champions like Gragas and Vi, because if they can't survive the CC and they get blown up in crowd control, it's going to be really hard for 100 Thieves to fight. They're really trying to hit that breakpoint where their front line is strong enough to take the brunt of such an engage, and then that's when they turn around with a Vi onto the front line, explosive tasks spreads out the fight, and they really try to single out one target to get that reset for Doublelift.
So going back to what you were talking about at the very beginning of the match here, Bwipo, you were saying that you're a bit concerned for the EG composition because if they start to fall behind, there'll be issues. They need to be able to play from ahead. It's a little bit more than 2,000 gold here 15 minutes into the game. Is this a comfortable lead to be able to play the match the way they want to play?
I think it's sufficient in order to flank and find angles to immediately take out Azir or Jinx, but it's not nearly enough gold advantage to like front to back and win at 2 items. So I want to clarify that, as there's going to be a little scuffle around vision. It's really important that right now, these are the biggest spikes for these bruiser champions. Sylas, Renekton, they are too tanky right now for Azir and Jinx to do enough damage to kill them in CC. So what ends up happening is Vi ults someone right now. Jinx and Azir just don't have enough DPS nor burst damage because their kits are designed to deal all DPS, right? Yeah. So what ends up happening is they're too tanky right now. These bruisers are spiking. I ideally see 100 Thieves giving away the Herald and the Dragon here, and you're trying to hold the fort. If you can trade sides in the bottom right now and try to get some gold on this Azir or Jinx, that's going to be more than good enough in order for the flow of the game. As I do think a fight here on the Herald would be, honestly, potentially game-losing.
Yeah, especially with these Caitlyn traps being placed down, this champion incredible at controlling choke points around neutral objectives. Inspired, Ssumday, and FBI are staying there over on the Herald as Jojo goes back to mid to make sure 100 Thieves aren't able to just immediately trade the mid lane turret back for that Herald. As Tenacity and Closer are going to step up. Ssumday waited in the brush the entire time. Closer just face checks it, survives a long time, finally drops. Ssumday's very low, but the Super Mega Death Rocket will not be able to finish him off. 100 Thieves now backing away, having lost their jungler. No real way to contest this, and they lose a man.
Well, kind of goes to show what I was mentioning. Even though it was crowd control to go down onto the Renekton, Renekton at this point is still too tanky. There's no damage items yet coming out from enough damage items, I should say. Obviously, they have their mythic items, which are damage items, but they need their second and ideally third items to really burst people in crowd control. So as much as Renekton gets locked down there, it doesn't matter because Renekton with Gourd Drinker at level 11 has an incredible amount of base health, as well as effective health because he heals off Q, heals off the Gourd Drinker, and all of this combined is just too much.
And I really want to highlight the battle over Vision, because Vision makes such a big difference in how the team fight starts. When you mentioned, you know, you've got Renekton waiting in the brush and they get this fully charged stun off. Ssumday does a good job building up his Renekton Rage off of the Rift Herald, not using it on it, and then rotating over, and they kind of try and catch them as they're rotating between mid and then back to Herald. So you guys see the idea from 100 Thieves, just unable to execute without the extra information.
Definitely, because they also have the, they see two people catching the mid wave, and then they have the first rotation into the river, and they technically start a 3v5, but like I mentioned, even though they're 3v5, there just isn't enough damage to burn down this Renekton just yet.
All right, we got ourselves a dragon fight. In the meantime, it's going to be stolen away from evil geniuses. It was 100 Thieves trying to make that happen, but EG has the better smite here from Inspired, and it means they're going to equalize the Drake count, stop the 100 Thieves dragon stacking. 3,500 gold lead. Now they're going to take the blue buff too, and they're not done yet. Closer wants to get away as Busio flashes out. The lockdown comes in. He slams him into the dirt with his own ultimate. 6-2. The geniuses are looking good.
This has been a brutal last 3-minute sequence, Flowers, from Evil Geniuses. They get the kill on Herald, they get the Herald, then they steal the dragon, and they get the chase down kill, plus the mid turret.
And they got the blue with the Luxel, so that's salt in the wound. I will have to say I'm quite disappointed in the way 100 Thieves have been playing this mid-game. I do think they should have been trading sides and getting gold, getting towers. Just give it. You don't have to give it away for free, right? You're trying to get gold onto these carries, Jinx and Azir as beautiful steal there. Obviously, taking a Drake is an extra 5 minutes in terms of scaling, but the first Drake went down at like 13 minutes. This 19 minutes, only two Drakes dead in the game. You have got so much time to reach your item spikes on Jinx and Azir if they're focusing on farming, but they haven't been. They've been grouping mid, sharing experience, sharing gold, just kind of staring at each other, really.
Yeah. Individually, nicely played by Inspired. You know, he hits Closer with the stun, interrupting the possible engage there. Doesn't let him get the ult off and yoinks it away. Plus, they get the chase down. Now that the mid tower is also down, you can see Evil Geniuses getting a little bit of the deeper vision, and it's going to be so much more difficult for 100 Thieves to defend these side lanes because they've lost their defense in mid, and it's going to flow into the other sides.
So let me ask you guys then, what does 100 Thieves need to do to stop this bleeding and get to the point where they can scale to where Azir and the Jinx can blow them up in a CC? Because things are bleeding right now.
Well, you're seeing them do successfully now. They recognize, you know what, 5v5 when we stare at each other, it looks like we can't pull the trigger because we don't feel comfortable with the amount of damage we have. And at the same time, when EG starts the fight, they end up winning anyway. So it's not even as if we can really kite because there's too much CC on the front line. With Vi having no flash, he's not going to escape Sejuani and Sylas and Renekton all jumping in there. It's too much CC, too much damage. What you need to do is scale up until Azir and Jinx have enough damage to actually burst down the Vi ulted target. This is the most important thing, is whoever gets Vi ulted needs to die relatively quickly. So obviously Gragas is going to jump in with a body slam. It doesn't have to be a one-shot, but the point is getting the reset will allow Doublelift to reposition after the initial engage, but also pump out enough damage to kill all these bruisers. Because the advantage of having bruisers over carry champions, so you have Azir versus Sylas here, this is the biggest discrepancy, is the fact that Sylas has an effective health pool that's much larger. So Sylas can take damage and dish out damage this early in the game. Sylas will get outscaled in terms of damage output. However, this early on, and especially with how fed he got this game, the damage difference isn't that big, so Sylas might even do more damage than Azir right now. but he can actually take some damage too, which is why it feels so hard to fight for them.
I mean, when you compare the items, I think that tells the entire story. Bjergsen's still sitting on the pieces of his second item, working towards where you can see the jewel in the inventory now, as well as the pieces of what could be a Zhonya's, but there's already Shadow Flame completed a while ago on Jojo. He's also got the first needlessly large rod building towards the hat. Shadow Flame, Mythic, hat. That is not a reasonable amount of damage.
That's a full outfit right there, my friend. Well, looking pretty spiffy up there, split pushing in the top lane for himself. Yeah, he's got individually over a 2,000 gold lead over Bjergsen at the moment. Plus, we mentioned how important it is to get the early Rod of Ages, so there's even more inherent value in there because of the time that he got the early gold.
How many dollars did he earn from it?
Oh boy, I don't know if we have time to ask questions anymore because they're going in on closer. FBI wants to put some distance between himself and the jungler and puts a bullet in his head at the same time. Tenacity getting chased down. He's off the side and alone. He gets enough distance between himself and Inspired to not be stunned by the E. The stacks fall off, but Inspired and FBI are still chasing him down. W2 is going to connect. As Tenacity gets away, but he immediately walks into a ward, decides to teleport away. It's going to cost a summoner spell. It does keep him alive. That's about the best they can hope for. Closer drops again, and evil geniuses are just bullying him at this point.
It's really important to notice that, again, why has it felt like EG's been in control for so long? It's because there hasn't been enough gold income for the side of 100 Thieves on their carries. They really need to start completing those second items, and because there's more gold on EG's side, it's no longer a 2-item spike anymore that's necessary. Now suddenly we're looking at, oh, we might need 3 items because damage, the way it works is if someone has more tank stats, you need more damage to kill them, right? So with all this gold income coming in for the Sylas, is effective health for him because he heals more, because he has more points in W, more AP means he heals more. He's also got Sejuani. Earning more gold means obviously going to be tankier. We're looking at Infinity Edge now for the Jinx. Might even need Lord Dominik's, honestly. I'm not sure if Runan's buy was correct at all here. In fact, I do think he might not have enough damage this game in order to turn around the game, as even Bjergsen realizes, damn, I'm not dealing any damage to the front line of EG. I'm going to start building this.
Oh, nice ulti coming out from Inspired to lock down Busio. They're going to force the summoner spells, all 4 of them from the bottom lane of 100 Thieves. Closer just rejoins with his AD carry now, as 100 Thieves, they can successfully disengage, but man, it taxed those summoner spells hard.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates invested here from Evil Geniuses to try and make the pick. No kills, but as you said, the bottom lane, so vulnerable now with no summoner spells for either of them. If you set up for the team fight now, Evil Geniuses basically just get to bully 100 Thieves and take whatever they want off the map.
Which I think already was the case when I mentioned when they initially started contesting that second Herald and that second Drake. I do think that was the moment when they could have been really farming a bunch of gold on Jinx and Azir, and then at this point they might have been able to contest, but because they weren't and they were contesting and losing fights, what ends up happening now is, like I said, we're looking at 3 items each for them, and honestly it might even have to be 4 because the armor penetration on Jinx is going to be pivotal to kill these huge health bars. Lord Dominik's is not only, oh there it is, the Lost Whisper, that's a good start, but ideally I think we would have seen a Lord Dominik's Infinity Edge, because Infinity Edge getting delayed by this Runans is quite scary. But we will see if he's going to be able to pump out enough damage or even reach that 3rd item before a pivotal team fight's going to break out with no summoner spells on Jinx.
What I'd like to see now from Evil Geniuses is push out bottom lane pretty heavily, transition over to Baron, and you can look for turns off of Baron onto the bottom lane. 100 Thieves bottom lane, try and make a pick on them. Plus you have a very easy time of tanking and even threatening Baron here with a lot of vision control.
So there's always a really interesting topic where someone has no summoner spells, so Jinx has no summoner spell, key summoner spells for a team fight. But at the same time, Jojo's very close to completing his death cap, I believe. So there's always the argument
I want that hat.
Is death cap worth more than her summoner spells, and should we wait for the death cap or force a fight now? Because it's 4 minutes till Drake, and he's definitely going to have his death cap by then. Yeah. The question is the downside of having no summoner spell, or the upside in EG's case, is that worth more than completing the item right now? And it's always an interesting conversation. I can't say for sure which I agree with or which I don't, but we're going to have to see what EG decides.
If it was default to me right now, I would say Flash is worth more, but what if you can hit the golden hour right between, where you get the death cap before the flashes come up?
Well, there's also
you're wanting to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
you're just wanting everything here.
Well, there's also the Infinity Edge on Caitlyn, which again, I'm sure FBI is calling like, I need 2 or 3 more minutes and I've got Infinity Edge. Death cap's coming soon, which is why I think you're seeing EG be a little bit more passive despite the fact that there is a flash advantage. Obviously, Inspired being this deep in the jungle isn't exactly passive, but a lot more passive than hard engaging near the mid-tier 2.
Yeah, I think always fishing around for a summonerless support, very, very viable here.
I agree. It's very good to be in this jungle. I like how EG is playing. It's basically they're looking for a mistake rather than hard forcing a fight.
Yeah, especially because they have this super fed Sylas. So you see Jojo, he pushed in that bottom lane, then rotates over to see if they can cut anyone off, if they can catch anyone in the vision fight.
Yeah, there's no one person on 100 Thieves that can deal with this Sylas. He is simply too far ahead. He's got too much money. He's got too many items. So 100 Thieves will have to find some sort of a way to answer. They're getting the time to scale forward right now, at least. The gold lead for Evil Geniuses hasn't continued to balloon at the rate that it was previously. But after we hit those third item power spikes that you guys have been talking about, I think that's when we're going to see that gas pedal really just hit the floor for Evil Geniuses, at least if they want to end this game in a swift manner.
Yeah, and I think 100 Thieves at least should be commended for their defensive play right now because, like you're saying, they're facing so many threatening scenarios, but they were effectively able to keep vision behind Baron, not give up any more kills, and are trying to farm, put the extra money back on their carries. There you go.
All right.
I think we're waiting for the Infinity Edge, and then we'll see actually like a Baron start, for example. We'll see some real progress, I believe, because I do think that's what they're waiting for. In case you're wondering why they're not forcing Baron, you know, a lot of teams here will just pull Baron, force a fight with the Flashless Jinx, and, well, her Flash is about to be up, so we're going to see. Maybe EG thinks the core items are more valuable than Jinx's Flash.
We've got about 1 minute left on that Doublelift flash timer as Evil Geniuses will again look for an opportunity in the red side jungle of 100 Thieves. Closer sticking by Busio and Bjergsen, making sure that these guys don't just get jumped on. Tenacity's just about the only one with any sort of tankiness to be able to get caught and still walk away from it. Does have the Fimbulwinter completed now on top of the Mythic there, as Inspired's gonna get shielded up by his own support. Vulcan making sure that he's got absolutely no fear whatsoever checking around in here. EG still just casually going fishing, not hard forcing anything.
Yeah, I mean, Doublelift has been able to finish his Lord Dominance regards now, so his Infinity Edge is super delayed. I know there's going to be a bunch of memes. Since you can build it second now, it's going to be pushed all the way to fourth in this build. But he wanted the Lord Doms to be able to cut through all the bruisers, the front line. You know, they're not looking to dive here with the Vi like we were talking about. We're like, split him up with that Gragas ultimate and kill an isolated bruiser that's in front of you so you can get excited.
Absolutely. Hitting the front line of EG is going to be the only way to win. For 100 Thieves' composition, no one else can really dive in other than Vi, so the best way to use her is to CC the front line. Still doesn't have Radiant Virgin. Like I mentioned, Infinity Edge and Deathcap are completed. We're starting the Baron. Now's our time to fight. Jinx flashes back up. We don't care. We've got enough money to cover that.
100 Thieves, they recognize something's up. Closer's gonna lead the charge over towards the Baron pit. Jojo teleported into the topside river. Vulcan's gonna get jumped on by Closer, but Vulcan has Crown of the Shattered Queen. He can't be bursted down. Closer trying to get away. Ace in the Hole's gonna take him low, and Jojo's already killed Doublelift with the AD carry out of the picture. Evil Geniuses have to have surely secured themselves a Baron now. Ssumday still with the ulti on. He and Jojo will scare the remaining members of 100 Thieves away, and EG are right back onto the Baron.
Doesn't matter if you have Flash, if you get Vi ulted, even if you Flash, Jojo's going to be right on top of you, and that Deathcap Sylas is doing a mean amount of damage right now. As I do believe this will just be zoning them off the Baron, so nothing too extreme happening, unless Jojo's feeling himself, which he might. He is very fed after all.
Yeah, they're already looking at the transition over to Dragon. Closer, though, gonna sneak in.
Closer's thinking about stealing this one away. He knows 100 Thieves is pretty far behind, and a Miracle Steal could be what they need to get back into the game. Bjergsen has to flash to escape the binding from Vulcan that would have connected with him. 100 Thieves have to walk away as Evil Geniuses secure themselves the Baron just shy of 30 minutes into the game. It has slowed down, but 100 Thieves are still struggling greatly. Almost 8,000 gold behind. Evil Geniuses about to secure their third Drake.
Yeah, we get round 2 now. 100 Thieves actually all funneling in towards Dragon like they want to contest.
Oh, and they find Bjergsen and just delete him. Now I don't know what else they're going to be able to do. Jojo goes into stasis. Doublelift arms the chompers. Does he have the damage? No! Jojo with a Kingslayer buys enough time as Doublelift tries to kite it out, but it's a double kill back over to Ssumday. EG gets 3. Yes, they lose Jojo, but they'll take that trade.
Yeah, any day of the week.
And they have Baron buff too, so you can instantly push right after winning the team fight. Just gonna Baron up, take down a secondary turret while you're taking down Dragon and counter jungling blue. 3 things at once, thank you very much.
Vulcan's taken out blue twice this game. Weird stat, I know, but you know what? There you go.
Blue buff stolen by Vulcan.
I feel like you're in a pretty good spot in the game when your support gets blue buff twice. The enemy blue buff.
Yeah.
Mind you, twice in a game. Very, very nice.
9 stacks on his Dark Steel as well, so he's putting it to good use.
Very good game by EG so far. I really like the fact, like I mentioned, like they've been in control the entire time. They know exactly what their win con is. They know how to play the fights. And actually, I'm quite a little bit disappointed about Heart of Thieves in the sense that, like, I feel like there's been a lot of hesitation on their side. I feel like if they had just called off those early game objective fights or committed harder to them, because I feel like they were waiting for mistakes rather than anything. Beautiful chain lands here, and well,
yeah,
nice little skirmish.
Jojo was just hunting for closer, and Bjergsen was right in front of him over the wall, so he gets the nice chain onto the Azir. Thank you very much. I'll take the squishy Azir kill as well. He does get killed after coming out of the stopwatch, but Evil Genius is happy to make that sacrifice.
I wonder who got the shutdown on him, because that does matter, right? Being able to get a little bit of extra gold onto the Jinx there instead of, you know, one of the frontline boozers.
I've got bad news for you.
It's Gragas.
It was Gragas. It was Tenacity.
Not the ideal situation. They're going in after Jojo. This could be a big pick here for the side of 100 Thieves. Slow down the EG War Machine a little bit, and Doublelift's getting the money.
All 300 instead of 700, but we'll take that. Very important kill. Pivotal when you get Baron buff. One of the most important things that you can push in multiple lanes. As I don't think we're going to base race. I hope not. I do think we're going to recall here.
It wouldn't be much of a race.
They just want an objective bounty shut down there, so they're taking the.
I think they're going to try to take 2 towers here. I actually think they're going to drop their inhibitor, and I don't know if EG is going to be okay with that. I think they're looking for more. Yeah, they called bluff right there.
Yeah.
Jinx isn't here. You've got no damage. We're going more.
This feels wacky a little bit. First Nexus turret. There it goes. Drops to the enchanted cannon minion. 100 Thieves, they got a 5v4, but they can't just run straight into Evil Geniuses. They're still so far ahead. They're seeing if there's any way to maybe catch a straggler here, but they're not going to get it. So 100 Thieves, yes, they take the one turret in mid lane, but they lose a lot for it. Tenacity wants to flank. He's coming with the teleport. Closer's looking for the angle on Vulcan and FBI if he can find it. FBI is going to be juggled around with the damage over the wall from Busio and Bjergsen. FBI's killed off Closer, but he's going to be traded back. Now Jojo's ready to join the fight. Vulcan's laser hits no one. Ssumday keeping everybody distracted for now. We got ourselves a 4v4. Jungle dead for 100 Thieves. AD carry dead for Evil Geniuses, and EG's gonna walk it off.
Yeah, honestly, a pretty good assassination by 100 Thieves. They'll take the trade. It did cost, you know, teleport getting behind there, and you're not actually gonna get, you know, an objective or anything out of it. But they were at least able to get a little bit of kill money.
So what's really important about this is the game isn't ending. So why I mentioned this is I mentioned 100 Thieves scales better because the carries do a lot more damage, and as you can see, there's death cap now on his ear, so he's dealing a significant amount of damage compared to what he was used to. And the Infinity Edge is slowly coming online. He's about 1,500 gold off, maybe even less. I'm not sure how much he's almost there. He's got 1,400, 1,500 is completion. So right there, the pivotal items for the Azir and Jinx have come online, which means that well, we're actually looking at a maybe 100 Thieves win in a team fight, because it's going to be much harder for EG to team fight now that there's enough damage to make use out of the vial.
Yeah, 100 Thieves, I think the thing that they would be most worried about then is our flanks, because they have so many exposed areas that this EG team could come from with all these bruisers as well. As long as they can keep up their positioning with their defensive vision here and keep that Jinx and the Azir safe until their flashes come up, pretty short time period.
Well, I mean, Doublelift now has 4 completed major items to the 3.5 of FBI. The Jinx is ready to go. We've got an hourglass, or not an hourglass, a stopwatch, not yet built into an hourglass. But the stopwatch itself hasn't yet been used by Bjergsen, still unbroken. Means he has the opportunity to also engage with a big shuffle and not be immediately killed as a consequence. Hourglass completed now for Jojo, so when he gets into the middle of everybody, he can also do the same thing, drop that aggro for a minute. But even with an 8,500 gold lead, the power of Azir, the power of Jinx scaling late into the game like this, Evil Geniuses has to try to end this as quickly as they can.
And now they have flashes on top of that item.
I mean, honestly, this is a huge window. I would have loved to see Caitlyn's flash, like having no flash compared to Gragas having the flash up, be abused by 100 Thieves here, but they're taking it a little bit slower. They're going to try and secure vision, wait for the neutral objectives to spawn, and now the neutral objectives are about to spawn, both about a minute away. We're going to be able to see, well, the game-deciding pivotal moments here. A little fun fact here, Sylas is glowing red. That means he misclicked an elixir. He bought the red one instead of a blue one. So just making a little bit of fun of Jojo there, because I thought I've done it before. You know, you're TPing in. You've only got a few seconds.
He can punch you harder. More attack damage and lifesteal. Alrighty, boys. It's Baron time. The big purple worm returns to the rift. Evil Geniuses
Get
look
the
for an
vial.
opportunity to engage. Jojo with a stolen Vi ulti. Remember that Inspired can take some punishment from these guys. He has a Warmogs to be able to regenerate any health that he loses over time. 100 Thieves, they got everybody brought in here. Bjergsen used the teleport to join up in this fight.
Absolutely. What's really interesting and highly pivotal is that both carries can hit the vial to target. So we're going to have to wait for 100 Thieves to see if they can find a target where both carries can hit the same vial to target exact same time, burst them down, get the chompers underneath them, and that way they can secure a reset. As 100 EG forces the Baron and tries to flank them.
EG's forcing the Baron on top of a control ward from 100 Thieves, so the Thieves are aware of what's going on. Bjergsen, half HP, chunked out a little bit there. Evil Genius is using the Caitlyn traps to set up a defensive perimeter and keep 100 Thieves away from this Baron. It's still at about 7,000 HP. Couple more seconds gonna be required to burn it down all the way. Jojo wants to be able to keep Closer out of the pit. Closer's ready to go in and challenge. Jojo's taken low, but the Baron is secured by EG. Nice rocket timing from Doublelift to kill off the enemy mid laner. 100 Thieves have lost the objective, but they kill the enemy mid. They have a 5v4, and they'll stop the Dragon Soul from EG.
Exactly. It's almost bigger to be able to stop Dragon Soul, get an objective bounty shutdown, and more money with the nice little pick that they were able to get off. Because I don't know if Evil Geniuses are going to be able to make that Baron buff worthwhile. 100 Thieves, pretty happy with it. Now
They're looking for more.
Can they get the flank?
I like this. Well, the AD carry.
Oh, there it is! FBI!
I love their
What are you doing, buddy? What are you doing? Inspired now having to just try to get away out of the other end of the fight. FBI survives. Still alive for now. Had to use the flash to be able to get away from there.
And he lost his Guardian Angel.
Yes, the Guardian Angel's the only reason he does survive. 100 Thieves doing a good job picking off that incredibly powerful active of the Guardian Angel, making sure FBI doesn't have it for the next fight, and sticking around in a situation when your opponents would very much not expect that to happen. Ends up paying off.
All in all, I think 100 Thieves won out. Even though they lost Baron, getting the kill, getting the objective bounty shutdown, taking away Flash and Guardian Angel from FBI.
So something that's really important about Baron is the way you set up the map. And what ends up happening when you lose one player, even losing one player in a 4v5, you can't aggressively walk into the pivotal positions on the map to take control over the lane. So for example, this red buff area, you can't walk in aggressively because you don't have any vision of anyone. So no one showing up on the mid wave should be very dangerous. I do believe EG should have been smelling something dangerous happening. I mean, honestly, it could have even been Inspired. Like, they could have looked around and getting Inspired instead, but managing to get the Summoner spell and the GA out of Caitlyn is incredibly valuable for the next 5 minutes.
All right, boys, so what do we put 100 Thieves' chances in this one? They are still down 8,000 gold, but they have scaled. 4th item completed now on Bjergsen 2 with the Banshee's Veil. Doublelift's almost a full build.
Well, I'm going to say favored. I'm not going to put a percentage on it because I'm not a mathematician, but
all right.
I will say, if I had to make a bet right now, I would say 100 Thieves is in favor. I do like the way they've been fighting, and honestly, I don't think EG's been creative enough near the back end of the game. I haven't seen Jojo find angles to flank. We'll have to see how the Assault and Battery gets stolen or not, because I do think the Vial is incredibly important, and I'd love to see Closer actually avoid Jojo like the plague, unless he's hard engaging like he did last time.
Right.
So
don't give him the ult.
Don't give him the ult. Stay out of range, because the Vial onto the Jinx is going to still be really scary. No stopwatch onto Doublelift, so he's saying I don't need it. But we'll see if that's true, because I would have loved to see a stopwatch come out of him here, because the only way I can really see them lose is a Vial getting stolen and him getting ran down by 5 people, basically. Obviously, there's Caitlyn, so stopwatch has less value, but I think it's still worthwhile. Now,
there's 10 seconds left on Baron with a grand total of plus 300 gold for Evil Geniuses. Remember that the objective itself is worth 1,500, so ultimately the Baron does not end up rewarding him, and it's what you guys were talking about. You said it, Kobe. I think it was 100 Thieves positive. Well, the numbers are on your side as well, my friend. 3 minutes before that comes back alive, the Drake's going to be up first this time. Remember, last time around, Baron spawned about 30 seconds earlier than the Drake. This time, it's the opposite situation, and we're going to see Jojo once again separated from the rest of his team. But this is not the same reality that it was 15 minutes ago when Jojo was the raid boss and nobody could go near him in a 1v1 situation. He's got to be much more careful. He's gone from 5-2 to 5-4, been picked off without being able to find more of those bodies that he was dropping in the early game.
it's been really difficult for Sylas to find angles because honestly, Renekton hasn't really been pulling his weight, I'll be honest with you. I haven't really seen the Crocodile on my screen too often, which is not a good sign. You do want to see your top laner on the screen when you're watching a game in order to win it. It's not to say that Ssumday's had a bad game, but he's been very quiet, so hopefully he's going to be able to find some impact in a team fight, as he does have 4 items, and this is the value of having these AD bruisers, is they actually scale with items. So when Renekton gets 5 items, obviously it is a Renekton, so he's not the best scaler, but still does a significant amount of damage if you can get in the middle of a team fight.
Yeah, I think Evil Geniuses, the time is actually really scary now because they have lost that big advantage that they did have, which was vision control. When the observers toggled the vision to EG view, the entire map is lit up. And 100 Thieves, it was all dark. But 100 Thieves now at the point where they can just push out and secure the vision over Dragon first. Now they're the ones in a commanding spot. Only a little bit worried about the split push Sylas up there in top lane. And Jojo, I believe his Unleashed teleport is off cooldown.
Another interesting part about when Dragon dies after the Baron, it means that the next Dragon is going to spawn before the Baron spawns. So you don't have to worry about trading objectives anymore. As pretty much at this point with the 6-item BT Jinx, what's going to happen is he's going to get Karma sped and run in a straight line at the first target he can hit, and he's going to challenge them to hard engage on them, because that's how they win. Is when people try to funnel into the Jinx, and Jinx get to unleash all the Runan's damage, because at this point a 6-item Jinx is obviously ridiculous amounts of DPS.
Yeah. And with 100 Thieves having control of the vision, there's no way that they're going to get flanked from 3 different angles again to get behind him. They're trying a little bit to try and push over towards mid lane. Dragon about to spawn though, and 100 Thieves should be able to clean it up.
100 Thieves wants to burn this one down. Remember, they only have that one Nexus turret remaining, so they've constantly got to be respecting this split push. Always keep eyes on Jojo. Always be aware of the state of that inhibitor and what's being pushed up here. Jojo's going to take down the Sun Disc, but Bjergsen has so many items now. He's a full build Azir. You can't just walk up and free hit in front of him.
We were talking about it earlier today, but it's interesting what 100 Thieves have done with the veterans on their team. Doublelift and Bjergsen, the carries here, so reliable and scaling up into late game. And again, they've put that faith in them. Let's see if it pays off. Now we get the exciting times.
All right. EG wanted to set up the trap line here with the Caitlyn. You can see a lot of those traps armed in this river brush. One of those was stepped on by Closer. Jojo throws out the stolen Gragas. Ulti just sort of knocks the Thieves aside, but doesn't put anybody in a dangerous or precarious situation. Tenacity going to clear out one of those cupcake traps. And the thing for EG is, if you're not the first to the situation, if you're not the team with priority over the neutral objective, Caitlyn can't set up the way she wants to set up. And it's much easier for 100 Thieves to navigate the fight.
So the way to progress the game for 100 Thieves is actually having Jinx be your main front line and having Gragas and Vi next to her and counter-engaging whoever's going on her. The reason why this is because ultimately, unless 100 Thieves forces an objective, a neutral objective, where they hit it, there's nothing going to be happening here. So as much as it looks scary to have Jinx walks up to you, we're just waiting for the next Dragon to spawn, and then we're going to have a fight around Soul unless Doublelift decides he wants to walk up and contest people. Or 100 Thieves decide to start the Baron, because ultimately, if EG starts the Baron and they're all stuck in the pit, it's going to be a very difficult fight to win, because even if you have one person flanking Doublelift or Bjergsen right now, they've got double defensive items on the Azir, BT, Cleanse Flash on the Jinx, it's not sufficient. Sylas can't solo kill this guy. He needs Renekton to help him, and it's going to be really hard to find a flank at this point of the game, so...
Exactly.
EG's just hoping for a mistake.
Yeah, 100 Thieves, their front to back is simply better. In addition to all those safety tools you talked about, Azir and Jinx both having, they've got a Karma with the Mikhails as well, and the Shirelia speed, so it's just... Evil Geniuses are down in 7,000 gold, but they are the underdogs in the team fight scenario.
And I think Bwipo described it perfectly earlier, talking about how EG has not really done a lot in the later stages of the game. Speaking of which, this is now our longest game of the split at 44 minutes and 44 seconds. Evil Geniuses is pushing into the base of 100 Thieves as 100 Thieves goes after the Baron. Inspired wants to try to stop it, try to steal it, just try to buy a little bit more time.
They're going for
the Baron's going to be secured, but EG just wants to win the game. They take out the enemy mid. They're going straight to the Nexus. We waited 44 minutes for that. Evil Geniuses get the win.
No way! Baron for Nexus! Baron for Nexus! Tweet it out! That is the title, baby! Oh my God!
Painful, really, to lose that way. My God. They had all the control in the world. All they needed to do is put their body on waves and actually force a fight, in my opinion, and they almost definitely would have won that. I feel like it was hard to imagine a way to lose, and that was it. Get front doored. Hard to call it back door. Most of the team was there. It wasn't like 2 TPs in. It was most of the team was.
They just walked up to the front door, knocked, and then stepped inside.
Yeah, and 100 Thieves weren't home because they snuck out to go steal Baron. Oh man, that.
To be fair, I will say I do think a lot of good learnings for 100 Thieves. I think good reminders, because that's the thing, when you have veterans, a lot of the time it's more reminders than learnings, because you've had this happen before, you know? You played the late game scaling composition, you went into a point where you contested a Drake at, 19 minutes when they've only got one Drake, and then you realize like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this, we should be gathering gold. Managed to claw back the game, and eventually got front doored. So they lost, but still, a good reminder. This is really important when you play these strategies, is accrue gold on Azir and Jinx so that you can keep the control and you don't lose the inhibitors, you don't lose your Nexus towers, so this type of strange things can't happen and you can reliably force a 5v5 in the future.
I think there's definitely things to take away from this game for both teams. 100 Thieves being a bit too aggressive early on before the carries came online. Evil Geniuses losing their way and getting to the point where 100 Thieves were able to be a serious threat in a game where they were over 10,000 gold behind at the greatest point. It still ends up being an EG win thanks to that finale, but now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna toss things to a break, but afterwards it's gonna be Immortals versus FlyQuest, and FBI is gonna join the Analyst Lounge. Don't go anywhere.
I wonder how many views the LCS will get today.
I mean, Jojo's mom is watching all of my games.
She's a big fan of yours. Yeah. Unironically, she is watching all your games. She's watching all my games,
Closer's ready, finds the Q over the wall. Another auto attack will do it. And Doublelift gets excited for first blood. 3,500 gold lead. Now they're going to take the blue buff too, and they're not done yet. Closer wants to get away as Busio flashes out. The lockdown comes in. He slams him into the dirt with his own ultimate. 6-2. The Geniuses are looking good.
Red Bull gives you wings. Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hmm?